Well, yesterday morning, we were all treated to a huge surprise when a long desired game by many, many people was finally announced and confirmed. Yesterday morning, Nintendo randomly tweeted on a Tuesday morning that Xenoblade Chronicles X would be getting, finally, a definitive edition port to the Nintendo Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles X is widely known to be one of the best games available on the Wii U, which is a big statement because I don't care what anyone says. I think the Wii U has a fantastically strong library. So being one of the best games on a console with such a strong library is actually a pretty big claim. So it's known for being one of the best Wii U games. It's known for being one of the best Nintendo made or published games over the past decade, and a lot of people find it to be the best game in the Xenoblade Chronicles series. I sometimes go back and forth on whether or not I think the original game or X is the better, but either way, those two games make up my two favorites of the franchise. In fact, wouldn't you know it, but I happen to have the game right here because yes, I own Xenoblade Chronicles X. I own every Xenoblade game with the exception of Torn of the Golden Country. I don't own that. But I do have Xenoblade Chronicles X because, as you guys know, I'm a big Wii U fan. I'm a big supporter of the Wii U. I still play my Wii U to this day. So, of course, when this game first released in December of 2015 in North America, I was there day one, baby. In fact, beyond that, what if I was to also show you that I actually have the special edition, the special collector's edition of Xenoblade Chronicles X. I do not have many special editions for video games. It really isn't my thing. This is probably one of maybe 4 or 5 I've ever had. And it's amazing, and it's got the USB and the soundtrack and this great art book. And so these together, and I'm not even a JRPG fan, but this was a game I was excited for because I loved the Wii U, I loved the original Xenoblade Chronicles, so yeah, I snagged these bad boys and I've held on to them ever since. Now let's get back and talk about the game a little bit and the announcement. Like I said, it was yesterday morning, I think it's 7 a.m. Pacific time, which is my time in the United States. The YouTube video and the tweet went out announcing this game. And like I alluded to at the beginning, and at this point, you guys all know this, you don't need me to tell you this, but I'm going to remind you of it anyway. This is a game that fans have been asking for a long time, due in part to the fact that so many Wii U games have gotten ports to the Nintendo Switch. A lot of them in the form of what's been titled a deluxe edition, or a deluxe version. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, several other games using that moniker. And so Xenoblade Chronicles X, after all of these incredible Wii U titles that were getting ported to the Switch, Xenoblade was kind of the last remaining really high-profile one that a lot of people were asking for. And a lot of us were doubtful on whether it would ever happen. I was certainly doubtful, but I was definitely open to the idea. I'd also kind of written it off, to be honest, because it had been so long since anyone had thought about it, and we know the Switch is nearing the end of its life. I mean, hell, every day we're waking up for an announcement about the Switch 2. No one expected to see Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition announced today, but they did do it. And so the most exciting part to me, as a defender and fan of the Wii U and the Wii U version of Xenoblade Chronicles X, who loves the GamePad support, is the fact that the Wii U port is boasting significantly upgraded visuals and redone character models, which is all visible in the trailer. And there's even going to be new content, which is by far the coolest thing. So I've gone on record many times saying that I've not purchased any Wii U ports to the Switch, with the exception of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because it was at the very beginning of the Switch's life, and we were excited for anything we were going to get. And I wanted to believe there was going to be more of a graphical upgrade to that than there actually was at the time, but that's okay. Again, when the Switch was new, we just wanted any games we could get, and Mario Kart 8 was a fantastic game. Even though I own it on the Wii U, I wanted to pick up the Switch version. So that happened, but then the trend of too many Wii U ports started happening, at least for me. Every single Wii U game I would want to own, I already own and still own on the Wii U. I have like 30 physical Wii U games and like 99% of the exclusive library and the first-party library. And so basically every Wii U port to the Switch that I would have wanted, I didn't need because I already owned them, and I had no reason to double dip because I don't play my Switch portably. I can play my Wii U or my Switch at any time on my TV. They're both hooked up to the same TV. So it just would have been a waste of money, and I didn't need those games. I already had them. However, Xenoblade Chronicles X I can confidently say will be the first, again, excluding Mario Kart 8 at the very beginning of the Switch. It's going to be the first Wii U port that I actually do buy on the Switch. I am super excited. It also has to be noted that one of the reasons I didn't buy a lot of the Wii U ports on Switch is also because I think the definitive version of every game that uses the GamePad is the Wii U version by default, because I don't care what anyone says. The GamePad is an amazing controller. For the games that took advantage of it and used it, even if they used it to an okay degree, or the few games that used it really well, there was no way I was going to downgrade my Wii U experience to the Switch experience with just one screen. Some games, like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, for example, there's no difference. You don't use the GamePad on the Wii U version, so that one would have been fine. But a game like Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, or a game like Wonderful 101, that was another game I sometimes forget actually got ported, a game like Pikmin 3, yeah, no way, man, I'm sticking for the Wii U version, not only because I already owned it, but because it's going to be worse without the GamePad support on the Switch. Now, with Xenoblade Chronicles X, I have always been dubious about what a port would look like because the game does take advantage of the GamePad in some really interesting ways. It uses the base level version of the GamePad support where it has a real-time map and inventory, and I cannot stress to anyone who didn't experience the real-time map on the GamePad for Wii U games how important it is to have that. So much better to rely on a real-time map in the palm of your hand that doesn't require you to pause the game to enhance your experience. It is so much better not having to pause and pull up a map and check this and check that. And we've done it for years, and we've done it for the years since the Wii U, and it makes me sad because I think gaming took a step backward when we moved on from the Wii U and lost that. Xenoblade Chronicles X makes use of that GamePad, and there's a lot of maps and a lot of locations to go through, and it is super helpful. There's also another element to the game, and it's been almost 10 years since I've played the game, so I don't remember the details, but there's some kind of like mining activity or mineral tracking activity or something where you're like, you've got all these waypoints for different materials or minerals, and you have to do certain tasks and quests around them, and they're notated on the map on the GamePad touchscreen, and there's something you can do whenever you touch the location where that is. I think you're like filtering resources to and from some of these points. I don't remember, so if I'm remembering this incorrectly, you can yell at me. I put in like 75 or 80 hours into Xenoblade Chronicles X in 2015. So I played the damn game. It's just been a while and I don't remember the details. But it was a really cool function of both the game, and it was more enhanced because of being able to do it on the GamePad as opposed to having to pause it again. And so I was always nervous about losing the incredible GamePad functionality for Xenoblade Chronicles X, but it's being more than made up by the fact that the game is featuring new story content. The other thing to kind of move this into the next phase of this conversation here is that the game was announced for March 20th, 2025. So it's another 2025 title for Nintendo for the current Switch. I mean, it's announced for the current Switch as we know it. It's going to look great. It's going to play great even without the GamePad. It's going to have that extra content. And it's not coming out this holiday. It's coming out in March. And as we all know, between now and March, we're supposed to have the Nintendo Switch 2 revealed, or the Switch successor. So there's a lot of people jumping to the thought, and it might be correct to be fair, but they're jumping to the thought that, well, it's the last week of October. We don't seem to be getting a Switch 2 reveal. Technically, there's still 2 more days, so maybe Nintendo surprises us this week. But it doesn't seem like we're getting that Switch 2 reveal this week like a lot of people wanted to say because of family boards and Reddit posts and all this stuff that I just don't follow or care about anymore. I thought it might happen just from my own analysis of the business and of Nintendo, not because of weirdos on Twitter and Reddit boards and stuff just pretending to know things when they may or may not actually know them. And so now a lot of folks are saying, well, it looks like the big announcement was Xenoblade Chronicles X, and it's even announced for 2025. We're not going to see the Switch 2 this year. And that may or may not happen. I'm not going to lie. I still think between now and the end of the year, we might see it. I talked about it in a recent video. I think the Switch 2 might be revealed in November or maybe even December. I'm not ruling anything out until it's December 31st. Even though there is a great possibility it does get revealed in 2025 before the end of March. I mean, we are running out of runway in this year for it to happen. So I'm fully admitting that, but I'm just not yet ready to let go of 2024. But we are starting to see Nintendo's 2025 stack up with some games, not the least of which is, the most important game of all time, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. But whatever's happening with that game, Switch or Switch 2, whatever's happening with anything else, we're starting to get a bit of a buildup for games coming out for Nintendo platforms in 2025, and we can now add Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition to the list. Granted, as exciting as it is an old game. Unlike Metroid Prime 4 or the new Pokemon game, those are brand new games, whereas Xenoblade Chronicles is an old game. There's the Donkey Kong Country Returns port. That's another old game, It's like half and half new games and old games. So it's exciting to get Xenoblade and Donkey Kong, but they are older games that a lot of people have played. It's the newer games that are the most exciting. But the year is certainly starting to stack up, and so we wonder how that impacts the Switch 2. We wonder how that impacts the reveal of that console. We wonder how it impacts the rest of Nintendo's 2024, and are we going to get any other sort of last Nintendo Direct for the year, since they didn't give us one in September? I mean, there's a lot kind of to piece together based on today's announcement. A lot of people are talking about other games we should still expect, and if Nintendo is willing to port Xenoblade Chronicles X of all games from the Wii U, what about other games like the Zelda games, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, or of course Metroid Primes 2 and 3, more older games that a lot of people would like to see ported, myself included, to be fair. Mario Galaxy 2 is another one that folks talk about. So I do have to say, when it comes to like the Zelda games, I certainly do want those ported, but I think that we have to remind ourselves that those games, if they come to the Switch or the Switch 2 or whatever, they're not really Wii U games, and they wouldn't really be Wii U ports. And I think that people get confused about that, because it's like, what other Wii U games are available to port to the Switch? There's not many left, because so many have already happened. And people will point to Wind Waker and Twilight Princess because they themselves got HD ports to the Wii U. But my personal stance on this, and I think it's an important distinction, is that if we get HD versions of Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess to play on the Switch, they will not be Wii U ports. They're going to be GameCube/Wii ports. Technically, all of this stuff is a conversation for another time and another video. And actually, a video I want to make in the next day or two is now talking about how Nintendo's 2025 is shaping up. I don't need to go into that any more than I have here, because the real focus of this conversation was the announcement of Xenoblade, the fact that I'm actually excited for it, and now I can say that I will have collected all of the Xenoblade games on one console. I mean, I have the Wii version of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, I have the Wii U version of Chronicles X, but I also have 2 and 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on the Switch. I am still missing Torna the Golden Country, like I said in the beginning. So I'm going to get Chronicles X, I'm going to get Torna, and I'm going to have the whole franchise on the Switch, even though I have the original releases as well. I guess technically I'm missing the 3DS version of the original game, so maybe one day I get that as well, because that would be interesting to just kind of see what it's like. And I really love that first game. Look, I like it more than Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3, and I know that's a hot take, because people love 3, and I really liked 3 as well. But that first one was special, man. And so was Xenoblade Chronicles X, because it's just got a more interesting world. I like the visual style. It's not like overly anime the way that the visual style kind of became. And I don't mind it for those games, but I prefer the visual style of Xenoblade Chronicles X. It's very sci-fi. You've got the scale mechs. You also are using guns combined with melee weapons for the combat. I mean, and it's the best looking Xenoblade game ever. Even the Wii U version is better than any of the other games, in my opinion. So this is a very exciting thing and a very exciting time. How does it fit into the Switch 2? We don't yet know, but it'll be fun to see what happens when it happens.